Friends, if you want to watch the thrilling and emotional movie Greenland, 2020, in English, then you must like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update from us about movies, web series, and all things entertainment. Friends, today's video is going to be full of excitement because we are going to talk about a gripping and powerful film called Greenland. This movie is not just a typical disaster film. It's an intense survival drama packed with emotion, action, and suspense that keeps you hooked from beginning to end. So if you enjoy thrilling plots mixed with strong storytelling and emotional depth, this movie is definitely for you. In today's video, we're going to give you complete information about the movie Greenland. We'll tell you what this movie is about, what makes it different from other disaster films, and why it became a favorite among audiences around the world. We'll also discuss where you can watch this movie, on which OTT platform or satellite TV channel it's currently available, and whether it's available with English audio or subtitles in other languages. Whether you prefer streaming on your phone, watching on your laptop, or catching it on television, we've got all the details you need. Now let's talk about the technical side of the film. We'll dive deep into the production of Greenland, how the film was made, who directed it, who wrote the screenplay, and how the entire crew came together to create a high-quality cinematic experience. The direction was handled by Ric Roman Waugh, and the film showcases his talent for creating tension and emotion with precision. We'll also explore the music department, how the background score added intensity to the scenes, and how the sound design helped in building suspense throughout the film. We'll talk about the cinematography, the visual effects, and how real everything looked, even though the story revolves around a global catastrophe. We'll give you insight into the filming locations, the use of green screens, and how the movie balanced realism with cinematic drama. You'll also learn about the pre-production process, how the idea for Greenland was developed, how the casting was done, and how the team prepared for such a large-scale disaster movie. We'll cover the filming phase, post-production editing, and special effects work, along with the final touches that made the movie look polished and engaging. Of course, we can't forget about the budget. In this video, I'll tell you how much money was spent on making Greenland, how the budget was allocated across different departments like special effects, actor salaries, locations, and marketing. And once we know the budget, we'll also look at the box office numbers. How much money did the movie earn? Did it perform well in theaters? Was it successful globally? We'll answer all of these questions and give you a clear idea of the film's commercial success. Now let's move on to the story. Without giving away any major spoilers, I'll give you a short overview of the storyline. The film follows a man named John Garrity, played by Gerard Butler, as he tries to save his family during a catastrophic comet event that threatens to wipe out most of life on Earth. The story is filled with tense moments, emotional decisions, unexpected obstacles, and heart-wrenching scenes that show what it truly means to fight for survival. I'll also give you a short review of the film, how the pacing felt, how the emotions were portrayed, and what made it a memorable experience for viewers. We will also break down the star cast of Greenland. The lead role is played by Gerard Butler, and we'll discuss how his performance carried the emotional weight of the movie. We'll talk about Morena Baccarin's role as Allison, how she portrayed a strong yet vulnerable mother, and how the chemistry between the actors made the family dynamic feel real and powerful. We'll also mention other supporting characters, their contributions to the story, and how each actor brought their character to life with conviction. And of course, we'll end with some fascinating facts about the film. Did you know there were several changes in the production schedule due to the pandemic? Or that the film gained a second life through online streaming after theatrical releases were delayed? We'll uncover all these behind-the-scenes stories, fun trivia, and production secrets that most people don't know about. All of this will make your viewing experience even more enjoyable. So, friends, that's why I request all of you to stay with us till the end of the video. If you're a movie lover or someone who enjoys suspense, thrill, and emotional storytelling, you're going to love this breakdown of Greenland. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and let's get started with today's video. Alright friends, buckle up, because we're diving deep into the story of Greenland, and let me tell you, it's an emotional roller coaster wrapped in a survival thriller that grabs you by the collar and doesn't let go. This isn't just another movie where cities blow up and everyone runs around screaming. Oh no, Greenland starts quietly. Almost suspiciously quietly. We meet John Garrity, a regular guy, a structural engineer who's trying to keep his family together. Things are rocky at home. There's tension between John and his wife Allison, and like many parents, they're just trying to do the best they can for their son Nathan. It's a story that starts in a familiar place. Family drama, second chances, and the everyday grind. Then comes the twist. The news is buzzing about a comet named Clark that's supposed to pass by Earth. Scientists on TV are all smiles, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime event. People gather to watch the sky. There's a neighborhood barbecue, kids playing, people laughing, looking up at the stars, totally unaware of what's coming. And then, out of nowhere, John receives an alert on his phone. Not just a regular message. An official presidential alert. He's been selected. Selected for what? That's the million-dollar question. No one else at the party has received the message, which immediately sets the stage for mystery and panic. This is the first big turning point. While everyone's watching the sky, a fragment of the comet slams into Florida. And I'm not talking about a little boom. We're talking massive, catastrophic destruction. Boom. Florida is gone. The shockwave is global. Panic spreads like wildfire. And just like that, the world flips upside down. John and his family rush to the designated airbase, one of the few safe zones for selected evacuees. Here's where the emotional tension starts rising fast. You think, okay, they're selected. They're safe now. But nope. Life has other plans. At the airbase, they're stopped because Nathan has diabetes and needs insulin. The military refuses to let them board the evacuation plane. Just like that, the system that was supposed to save them shuts the door. Families are split. Crowds start to riot. It's chaos. Amidst the madness, John and Allison get separated, and the story kicks into full survival mode. And this is where the movie gets really interesting. It's no longer about the comet. It's about finding each other again. The story splits into two parallel narratives. John is out on the road, trying to navigate a crumbling world. He's not a superhero. He's not armed to the teeth. He's just a father who's terrified. On the way, he meets people who pretend to help. But of course, in a world falling apart, not everyone is friendly. He ends up hitching a ride with a couple who seem nice at first but soon reveal themselves to be kidnappers trying to steal his evacuation wristband. One wrong decision and he's fighting for his life. Meanwhile, Allison and Nathan face their own nightmare. Alone, vulnerable, and trying to find shelter, they end up on foot, hoping to reach her father's house. Along the way, they meet people who help, and others who don't. One powerful moment comes when they find a kind older couple who take them in, giving them food and comfort for the night. It's a reminder that in the middle of madness, humanity still exists. Eventually, the family finds each other again in a moment of relief that feels like the emotional heart of the movie. But there's no time to celebrate. The biggest challenge still lies ahead. The news has spread. A final extinction-level impact is coming. The only place safe from the destruction? Underground bunkers in Greenland. And here's where the race against time really hits its peak. The Garritys must travel across a ruined landscape, dodge falling comet fragments, and somehow catch a last-minute cargo plane heading to the bunkers. The build-up to this climax is pure tension. Roads are blocked, fuel is scarce, and explosions light up the sky as more fragments enter Earth's atmosphere. You can feel the weight of every decision. Time is ticking. The sense of dread is heavy, but so is the hope. You want them to make it. You need them to make it. The brilliance of the narrative lies in how it balances spectacle with emotion. It could have easily turned into a non-stop action fest, but instead, it takes the time to focus on the characters, their fears, their regrets, their love. Every moment of tension is matched with a moment of humanity. Whether it's John holding his son's hand, or Allison breaking down as she tries to stay strong, the emotional beats hit just as hard as the disaster scenes. And what's really clever is that the movie doesn't use any fancy tricks. There's no jumping back and forth in time, no dream sequences, no alternate realities. It plays out in real time. You live this nightmare with the characters. You feel like you're in the car with them, stuck in traffic as the sky burns red. You feel their panic, their hope, their heartbreak. It's raw, direct, and incredibly powerful. Greenland doesn't tell the story of superheroes. It tells the story of people. Flawed, scared, brave people. It shows what happens when the world falls apart and all you have left is your will to survive and the people you love. And that's what makes the plot so gripping. It's not just about escaping a disaster. It's about rediscovering what truly matters when everything else is stripped away. So if you thought Greenland was just another comet movie, think again. It's a full-blown emotional journey that takes you from quiet suburban streets to the edge of the apocalypse. And it does it with heart, tension, and relentless storytelling. Alright, let's go deeper into the emotional engine of Greenland, the characters. Because while the comet is busy tearing up the planet, it's the people at the heart of this story who truly keep you on edge. This isn't a film where characters exist just to scream or survive. Here they evolve. They get broken, rebuilt, reshaped by the disaster around them. And the beauty of it all? The transformation isn't flashy. It's subtle, grounded, and emotionally rich. Let's start with John Garrity. Now, here's a guy who doesn't enter the film as a hero. He's not the fearless leader you'd expect to rise up in a global crisis. In fact, when we first meet him, he's awkwardly trying to fix things with his wife. He's moved back into the family home, yes, but there's clearly a history. Something happened. Something that drove a wedge between him and Allison. And the movie doesn't spell it all out in one big exposition dump. Instead, it lets us feel it. The cold looks, the pauses, the strained conversations. It's in the silences between words where their brokenness lives. But here's the brilliant thing about John's character arc. He doesn't suddenly become a hero when the comet hits. He panics. He hesitates. He questions everything. And yet, slowly, situation by situation, he's forced to dig deeper. He's forced to earn back the title of protector. Every decision he makes chips away at the emotional distance between him and his family. He's not a savior from the start. He becomes one through trial, through fear, through moments that test his very core. Whether it's facing armed strangers, surviving brutal beatings, or making impossible moral choices, John's growth isn't about learning how to survive. It's about learning how to lead, how to love, and how to put his family first no matter the cost. Then there's Allison. If John is the backbone of the film, Allison is the heart. What a refreshingly layered female lead. She's not there to be rescued. She's not a side character in her husband's journey. She has her own arc, one full of strength, vulnerability, and emotional power. From the moment the family gets separated, we watch her transform from a cautious mother into a fierce, determined force of nature. And not in a cliched, action movie way. Her strength is quiet. It's found in the way she holds herself together when her son is scared. It's in the way she takes risks to protect Nathan. It's in the decisions she makes while navigating a world that's falling to pieces. But it's not just strength that defines Allison. It's resilience. And the filmmakers give her space to feel things. She's not always composed. There's a gut-wrenching moment when she thinks she's lost John forever. And in that scene, the weight of everything, every fight they had, every word left unsaid, comes crashing down. Her emotional arc is one of rediscovery. She sees John for who he's becoming, and through that, she allows herself to open up again. It's a beautiful organic evolution, not just of a character, but of a relationship. Now, let's talk about Nathan. So many disaster films use children as plot devices. Cute, scared, there to raise the emotional stakes. But Greenland treats Nathan differently. He's not just the kid. He's a real person in this story. He has a medical condition that adds a very real and dangerous layer to the family's journey. His diabetes isn't just a background detail. It drives some of the most intense moments in the film. It's the reason they're denied boarding on the evacuation flight. It's the reason they get separated. And throughout all of it, Nathan's character serves as a constant reminder of innocence, of trust, of what's truly at stake. He's also a kind of emotional mirror. When John and Allison are scared or overwhelmed, they look at him and remember why they keep moving. Nathan's calm in certain moments feels more powerful than any explosion. There's one particular scene, quiet, understated, where he asks his dad if they're going to die. And it just hits. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's so human. He doesn't cry. He just wants the truth. And the way John answers, not with false promises but with honesty and love, tells you everything about how far these characters have come. And the supporting cast? Let's not brush past them. They may have less screen time, but they still carry emotional weight. Take Dale, Allison's father. He's an older man, clearly hardened by life, but when Allison and Nathan show up at his door, there's no hesitation. He doesn't just welcome them, he becomes part of their fight to survive. The tenderness between Dale and Allison is especially moving. It's the kind of father-daughter relationship that's complicated and a little unspoken, but filled with depth. You get the sense that Dale wasn't always the best father. But in this moment, when it matters most, he shows up. Even the people John meets along the road, like the couple who offer him a ride, only to betray him, aren't one-dimensional. They're scared. They're desperate. And while what they do is awful, it's rooted in panic and fear. These aren't mustache-twirling villains. They're normal people who made a dark choice when the world gave them no good options. That moral grayness is everywhere in Greenland, and it's one of the film's greatest strengths. It understands that in a real disaster, people aren't just good or bad. They're complicated. They're scared. And sometimes, they're both. All of these character dynamics shape the story in powerful ways. The plot moves forward because they move forward. The comet might be the catalyst, but the emotional engine, the thing that keeps you watching, hoping, biting your nails, is watching these people grow. Watching John fight not just to survive, but to prove he's changed. Watching Allison rediscover trust and connection. Watching Nathan anchor them both in something pure and worth saving. It's a character-driven story dressed in the explosive clothes of a disaster thriller. And that's the real surprise of Greenland. It's not a story about a planet-saving hero or a government scheme to stop the comet. It's about a fractured family who, in the face of extinction, find their way back to each other. Their growth, their pain, their small triumphs in the middle of global catastrophe. That's what makes this movie hit harder than any fiery rock from the sky. Let's dive all the way into the performances in Greenland, because this is where the film quietly pulls off something remarkable. When people think of disaster movies, they usually picture explosions, collapsing landmarks, and maybe some panicked running with dramatic music in the background. And sure, Greenland has some of that, but what truly sets it apart, what gives it a heartbeat under all the fire and rubble, is the acting. This cast doesn't just react to danger. They carry the emotional weight of the entire apocalypse on their shoulders, and they do it so convincingly that you forget you're watching a fictional movie about a giant rock from space. Let's begin with Gerard Butler, the man who often plays the gruff, indestructible hero. But here? He's something different. He brings a rugged humanity to John Garrity, a man who isn't bulletproof, isn't invincible, and certainly isn't always right. Butler plays him with a kind of understated vulnerability that makes you lean in. He's not yelling orders. He's not swaggering around with over-the-top confidence. Instead, we get quiet moments filled with inner conflict. We see a man torn between guilt for past mistakes and desperation to make things right. The way he looks at his wife, there's history there. The way he holds his son's hand, there's fear, urgency, and tenderness all wrapped into one. It's the kind of performance that sneaks up on you. He doesn't shout for your attention. He earns it with every pained glance, every panicked decision, every protective instinct that kicks in harder with each mile they travel. And when he's finally pushed to the edge, when he has to do the unthinkable just to survive, Butler lets us see every crack in the armor. Then there's Morena Baccarin as Allison Garrity, and let's just say it, she's the emotional powerhouse of the film. She steps into a role that could have been relegated to concerned mother territory, and instead turns it into one of the most compelling arcs in the movie. She's fierce without being loud, composed without being cold, and when she breaks, it's devastating. There's a strength in her restraint, in the way she tries to hold it all together for her son, even as the world around her crumbles. One of her standout moments is when she's at the airport, begging authorities to let her family stay together. She doesn't play it for melodrama. Her voice cracks, her posture shifts, and you can feel the exhaustion and terror coming off her like waves. It's one of those scenes where you forget you're watching someone act. It just feels like real life. She also gets some of the film's most emotionally raw scenes. That moment when she believes she's lost John. She doesn't scream or fall apart dramatically. Instead, Baccarin shows us grief the way it often really is. Silent, paralyzing, like a punch to the chest. And when John finally finds her again, the relief that floods her face says more than any line of dialogue ever could. Baccarin makes Allison not just relatable, but unforgettable. She's the kind of character who doesn't need a weapon to be strong. Her strength is in her will, her resilience, her love. And then there's Roger Dale Floyd as Nathan, the young son, and let's take a moment to appreciate just how tricky a role this is. Playing a child in a disaster movie often falls into two categories: overly precocious or constantly crying. But Roger avoids both extremes. His performance is subtle, natural, and quietly affecting. He doesn't try to steal scenes. He just exists in them with an honesty that grounds the entire family dynamic. His character has diabetes, And that's not just a random trait. It's a central part of the story. And the way Floyd handles the physical and emotional demands of that situation? Remarkably mature. He never seems like he's acting. He just feels like a real kid caught in a nightmare, doing his best to stay calm while his parents fight to keep him safe. There's a particular moment when he notices his parents breaking down emotionally, and his instinct is to quietly reach out to them. That one gesture says so much. He may be young, but his presence constantly anchors the emotional stakes. Now let's not skip over the supporting cast, because even the smaller roles in Greenland feel layered and memorable. Scott Glenn as Dale, Allison's father, brings that classic weathered gravitas to the role. He's not there for long, but his scenes have emotional heft. He plays Dale as a man who's clearly made mistakes but still wants to do right by his daughter and grandson in the time he has left. The warmth in his eyes, the stoic calm in his voice, it all adds a deep layer of emotional texture. There's a moment where he calmly tells Allison to go without him, and the way Glenn plays it, so steady, so full of unspoken love, hits hard. It's not a showy performance. It's an honest one. Even the brief encounters along the Garrity's journey are brought to life with impressive depth. Take David Denman and Hope Davis, for instance. Their characters offer help to John, but things spiral quickly into betrayal. And here's the thing. They could have played it as flat villains, but they don't. Instead, they bring a chilling realism to their performances. Davis, in particular, plays her character with this calm, almost polite menace that makes her betrayal all the more unsettling. You don't hate them because they're evil. You're disturbed because they feel like people who've simply broken under pressure. Just a few steps ahead on the moral slippery slope everyone else is walking. Every interaction in this film feels like it matters, and that's because every actor shows up with commitment. No one phones it in. No one coasts on clichés. The performances aren't about screaming or crying on cue. They're about staying honest in the most unreal circumstances imaginable. Whether it's a tearful reunion, a wordless goodbye, or a silent moment of fear before entering the unknown, the actors in Greenland bring their characters to life with depth and authenticity. And that's the secret sauce. While the comet in the sky might be the headline, it's the quiet looks, the whispered promises, the trembling hands reaching out in the dark, that's what stays with you. These performances don't just support the story. They are the story. They transform a global disaster into a deeply personal experience, and in the end, that's what makes Greenland soar far above your typical end-of-the-world spectacle. Let's really sink our teeth into Ric Roman Waugh's direction in Greenland, because it's a masterclass in balancing spectacle with emotional intimacy. Something that's surprisingly rare in disaster movies. You see, most films in this genre go all out with massive CGI, non-stop explosions, and a relentless pace designed to blow your mind. But Waugh does something different. He crafts a story that feels like it's happening to real people, not just action figures caught in a cosmic calamity. And that difference shapes every frame, every performance, every heartbeat of the movie. From the very opening scenes, Waugh establishes a tone that's taut but never overbearing. Instead of rushing into destruction, he gives us a sense of normalcy tinged with unease. It's like he's whispering to the audience, something bad is coming, but life goes on until it doesn't. This subtle approach lets the tension build organically. You watch the family prepare for a vacation, see their routines, their quirks, and just when you're settling into their world, bam, the disaster hits. It's a careful tease that makes the chaos that follows hit harder because it feels like a real rupture in their lives, not just a flashy set piece. What's remarkable about Waugh's style is his commitment to a handheld, close-up visual approach. Instead of sweeping wide shots that show cities collapsing in grandiose fashion, the camera stays tight on the characters, moving with them like a shadow or a breath. This method pulls viewers right into the chaos and panic, making you feel the weight of every step, every decision. When John Garrity is sprinting through crowded airport terminals or ducking into shelter, the camera's jittery, urgent movements mimic his anxiety, drawing you into his headspace. This is no detached spectacle. It's immersive and claustrophobic in all the right ways. Waugh's restraint is also evident in how he handles sound and silence. Disaster movies tend to rely heavily on booming scores and constant noise to keep you on edge. But Waugh knows when to pull back, using silence as a powerful tool. Moments where all you hear is heavy breathing, whispered conversations, or the distant wail of sirens create an atmosphere that's suffocating and intimate. These quiet scenes are where the film's heart truly beats. For instance, when the Garritys huddle in a basement shelter, The absence of music makes their whispered fears and subtle gestures stand out. It's raw, it's real, and it's terrifying in a way that loud explosions could never achieve. When it comes to pacing, Waugh proves he's not interested in the typical roller coaster of constant peaks and valleys. Instead, he structures the film more like a tense journey or a road trip, one fraught with uncertainty and shifting stakes. Each new location isn't just a change of scenery but a new challenge emotionally and physically. Checkpoints, abandoned gas stations, the father's old friend's home. These stops punctuate the narrative and deepen the characters' arcs. The pacing mirrors real survival, which is rarely about non-stop action but about holding your breath, moving carefully, and dealing with unexpected obstacles. This rhythm makes the eventual moments of chaos feel earned and not just thrown in for thrills. Waugh's choice to keep the comet largely off-screen is another smart directorial decision. In many disaster movies, the catastrophe itself becomes a star, demanding attention with jaw-dropping visuals. Here, the comet's threat looms like an ever-present shadow, but the real focus is on human reactions. You feel the looming apocalypse through news broadcasts, distant explosions, and scattered debris, but you rarely get a clear, uninterrupted shot of the destruction itself. This choice emphasizes the human element. Fear, desperation, love, and makes the disaster feel like a backdrop to a very personal story. It's a subtle but powerful way to keep the stakes emotionally grounded. Another pillar of Waugh's direction is his work with actors. He doesn't just direct performances. He nurtures them. There's a tenderness in how he captures the interactions between Gerard Butler and Morena Baccarin. Their on-screen chemistry feels lived in because Waugh gives them space to find those quiet, messy moments couples actually share under pressure. Arguments aren't scripted bursts of drama. They're real, flawed conversations full of hope, regret, and fear. When Butler's character struggles with guilt or Baccarin's character shows fierce protectiveness, those emotions feel authentic, not staged. That authenticity anchors the whole film. Waugh also shines in orchestrating group dynamics under stress. The tension between characters isn't just written into the script. It's built into how the actors move, look, and react. The way John's trust shifts or how alliances are tested at checkpoints feels natural because Waugh keeps the camera on those micro-expressions and subtle gestures. You can almost feel the silent calculations, the unspoken fears, and the desperate attempts to hold on to some sense of control. Visually, Waugh keeps a gritty palette, dusty, muted colors, lots of shadows and smoke, that reinforce the grim reality of a dying world. This choice avoids the glossy, hyper-real look of many disaster movies and instead creates an atmosphere that's both bleak and strangely beautiful. It's like he's saying the world might be ending, but life is still messy, raw, and painfully real. Lastly, thematically, Waugh weaves in ideas about redemption, sacrifice, and family without ever turning them into clichés. His direction keeps these themes subtle and earned, never moralizing or heavy-handed. Instead, the film poses questions through the characters' choices and struggles. What do you hold on to when everything else is lost? How far will you go to protect the people you love? These questions hang over every scene, amplified by Waugh's steady hand guiding the narrative. In sum, Ric Roman Waugh's direction is the invisible engine driving Greenland. His focus on intimate storytelling, human emotion, and restrained spectacle makes this film stand out in a crowded genre. He doesn't just show us the end of the world. He shows us the heart of it, beating strong in the midst of chaos. And that's a directorial feat worth celebrating. Alright, let's dive even deeper into the cinematography of Greenland because this is where the film really flexes its muscles in a quietly powerful way. You know how some movies slap you in the face with wild camera tricks and flashy visuals? Greenland is the exact opposite, but that doesn't mean it's any less effective. In fact, the cinematography here works like a master storyteller's whisper, guiding your eyes and emotions with precision, subtlety, and an almost poetic touch. First off, let's talk about the lighting, because lighting in Greenland isn't just about visibility. It's a mood machine. The film frequently bathes its scenes in natural, often muted light that feels like it's been filtered through a haze of smoke, dust, and tension. Imagine the sun barely piercing a sky thick with ash, or the cold blue-gray cast of early morning as the world braces for disaster. This choice in lighting grounds the film in a gritty realism, stripping away any Hollywood gloss and making you feel like you're witnessing actual events unfold. But it's not all bleak. There's a careful dance between light and shadow that shapes every scene's emotional texture. Dark corners and softly flickering lights aren't just background. They amplify fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability, making the characters' emotional states visually tangible. Camera angles here deserve their own spotlight. The filmmakers avoid the usual grand sweeping shots that scream disaster movie. Instead, the camera often settles into intimate, tight framing, zooming in on faces, hands, or small gestures that reveal volumes. A trembling lip, a flicker of panic in an eye, a clenched jaw, these are the kinds of details that the camera latches onto. It's almost like the cinematography has a sixth sense for what the characters are feeling beneath the surface. These close-ups make the audience an involuntary voyeur, pulling us into the emotional core of every scene and making us feel the anxiety, the hope, the desperation. But when the film needs to remind us just how small and vulnerable these people are, it pulls back with wide shots that are haunting and impactful. Picture a lone family car moving through an empty highway stretching endlessly into the distance, or a cluster of survivors huddled on a desolate street with ruined buildings looming above them. These shots do a brilliant job of showcasing scale. Not just the physical enormity of the disaster but the emotional weight of isolation and helplessness. They create a sense of awe and dread without ever losing the personal focus. In these moments, the cinematography contrasts the vast, indifferent world with the fragile human lives trying to survive within it. Movement in Greenland is another subtle but powerful tool. The camera is often handheld, giving scenes a kinetic energy that mimics the character's own adrenaline-fueled urgency. But it's not shaky for shakiness' sake. The movements are deliberate and carefully choreographed to put you in the middle of the action. Whether it's a frantic dash through an airport, a tense encounter at a checkpoint, or a desperate search for shelter. This dynamic camera work creates an almost physical sensation of chaos and fear, making you feel like you're right there, heart-pounding, breath-catching. Lighting also plays a major role in turning ordinary settings into emotional landscapes. The basement shelter scene is a perfect example. The dim, flickering light from a single bulb creates deep, shifting shadows that crawl along the walls, turning a safe haven into a claustrophobic prison. The interplay of light and darkness visually mirrors the characters' shifting hope and fear, amplifying every whispered conversation and nervous glance. It's a masterstroke of cinematography transforming a simple set into a living emotional space. On the flip side, there are moments where light becomes a beacon of hope, those rare, fleeting glimmers of warmth in a dark world. The soft glow of a campfire illuminating weary faces, the sudden burst of sunlight breaking through storm clouds, or the flickering street lamps in a ghostly neighborhood. These shots aren't just visually pleasing. They're symbolic reminders that life persists even in the darkest times. The cinematography uses these bursts of light as emotional punctuation marks, giving the audience a chance to breathe and believe. There's also a very clever use of reflections and glass throughout the film. Characters are often framed through cracked windows, rain-splattered windshields, or mirrored surfaces. These visual choices add layers of meaning, fractured realities, distorted perspectives, the fragile barrier between safety and danger. They invite viewers to look twice, to see beyond the surface, and to feel the characters' inner turmoil. It's subtle, but it enriches the film's emotional complexity and visual storytelling. Color grading in Greenland is a carefully balanced act. The film favors a desaturated, almost washed-out palette that reflects the draining of life and hope from the world. Yet, within this muted canvas, splashes of color, like the red glow of emergency signs or the blue jacket of a child, stand out sharply, drawing attention to key emotional moments or urgent action. These color contrasts keep the visuals from becoming monotonous and give the cinematography an almost painterly quality, where every frame looks composed with intention and care. When it comes to the action scenes and moments of destruction, the cinematography steps up with restrained but effective techniques. Slow-motion shots capture the haunting beauty and horror of falling debris, turning chaos into a kind of visual poetry. Dust swirling in the air, glass shattering in suspended moments, sparks flying. All of these elements are framed to maximize emotional impact without overwhelming the audience. Instead of bombarding viewers with spectacle, these moments are meditative, allowing us to absorb the gravity of the disaster on a human scale. The camera's eye in Greenland is always present but never intrusive. It respects the story and the characters, choosing its moments carefully. Whether to linger on a heart-wrenching glance, to sweep across a devastated landscape, or to capture the delicate interplay of light and shadow in a quiet scene. This restraint elevates the entire viewing experience, making the cinematography feel like an essential storyteller rather than just a technical component. In sum, the cinematography in Greenland is a brilliant exercise in subtlety and emotional resonance. It's the silent partner that guides us through fear, hope, despair, and determination, using every frame to deepen the story and enrich the character's journey. It proves that sometimes less is more, especially when it comes to making you feel the end of the world. Alright, let's dig even deeper into the editing and pacing of Greenland, because this is where the film's storytelling really gets its heartbeat, and trust me, it's a heartbeat you can feel pulsing through every scene. Editing is often the unsung hero of a movie, quietly stitching together moments so that we don't just watch a story unfold, but live it. And Greenland uses its editing with a cleverness and precision that makes the entire experience feel both thrilling and deeply human. From the very first moments, the editing lays down a rhythm that pulls you in gently, but firmly. The film doesn't throw you into non-stop chaos right away, which can often be overwhelming in disaster movies. Instead, the pacing is like a carefully measured dance between calm and crisis. It starts with quieter, more intimate scenes that let you get to know the characters and understand the stakes. These moments don't feel rushed or like filler. They're essential breathing spaces that build emotional investment. The editing here is patient, lingering just long enough on meaningful glances, hesitant conversations, or small gestures that reveal the weight of what's coming. This patience is a smart move because it makes the sudden bursts of action feel all the more intense and earned. Now, when disaster strikes, the editing shifts gears seamlessly. It tightens up, speeding through sequences with brisk, purposeful cuts that ramp up tension without ever losing clarity. In many disaster movies, fast cuts can make action scenes confusing or exhausting, but Greenland strikes a masterful balance. The edits are sharp and energetic, but you never lose track of who's where, what's happening, or what's at stake. This clarity helps keep you on the edge of your seat, feeling like you're running alongside the characters rather than just watching from a distance. Transitions between scenes are another highlight. The editors don't just jump from one plot point to the next. They guide you through shifts in location, mood, and intensity with subtle finesse. For example, the switch from the chaos of an airport evacuation to the eerie silence of abandoned highways isn't jarring. Instead, it's smooth and deliberate, letting the tension simmer under the surface. The pacing here feels like it's holding its breath, waiting to unleash the next wave of danger. These transitions keep the story flowing naturally, making sure you're never jolted out of the experience. One of the most interesting things about the film's editing is how it uses silence and stillness. These quiet moments might seem simple, but they're incredibly powerful. The editors often insert pauses after tense sequences, moments where the screen holds on a character's face, or a landscape stretches out empty and ominous. These beats let the adrenaline settle and give your brain time to process what just happened. It's like the film is giving you a moment to catch your breath before the next sprint. This ebb and flow of energy is crucial to keeping the emotional stakes high without exhausting the audience. The pacing also cleverly mirrors the unpredictability of disaster. Just when you think the tension might ease, the editing quickens, thrusting the characters into new perils and close calls. Then, almost as suddenly, it pulls back again to slower, more reflective moments. This push and pull creates a rhythm that feels real and keeps you guessing. You never quite know when the next crisis will hit, and that uncertainty makes the experience all the more gripping. What's impressive is how the editing balances multiple story threads without losing focus. The film follows not only the main family's desperate escape but also brief glimpses of other people and situations. The editors weave these elements together smoothly, making sure the narrative feels cohesive and emotionally resonant. You don't feel like you're jumping around randomly. Every cut has purpose and meaning. Emotional beats get just the right amount of time too. The editors don't rush through moments of fear, love, or despair. Instead, they let these scenes breathe and develop naturally. When the characters open up about their fears or share quiet moments of connection, the pacing slows, allowing you to fully absorb the weight of these exchanges. These slower beats are essential, because they give depth and humanity to a story that could easily have been all action and spectacle. Action scenes are choreographed with precision editing that keeps the suspense high and the story clear. When debris is falling or the family is scrambling to safety, the cuts are tight and quick but never chaotic. The editors are careful to maintain spatial awareness so you always know where everyone is, which adds to the tension without causing confusion. This kind of editing skill is underrated but vital in disaster films, where maintaining clarity amid chaos can make or break the experience. The rhythm of the film almost feels like it mimics a human heartbeat or breathing pattern. Sometimes fast and erratic when danger strikes, other times slow and steady during moments of hope or reflection. This pacing technique helps the audience connect viscerally with the character's emotional journey. You feel their panic, their exhaustion, and their moments of calm as if they're your own. In conclusion, The editing and pacing in Greenland are finely tuned to create a viewing experience that's both gripping and emotionally rich. The editors have crafted a flow that balances tension and release, action and stillness, chaos and calm. This rhythm keeps you engaged and invested from the quiet opening scenes right through to the nail-biting climax. It's a masterclass in how smart editing can elevate a disaster movie from mere spectacle to something that truly resonates with the audience on a deeper level. Let's dive even deeper into the soundtrack and score of Greenland, because this film's use of music is a masterclass in subtlety and emotional storytelling, shaping the atmosphere and guiding our feelings with a delicate yet powerful hand. Unlike many disaster movies that blast orchestras at full volume, trying to force every emotion in your face, Greenland opts for a more nuanced approach, proving that sometimes less really is more when it comes to scoring tension and drama. Right from the start, the score sets a tone that is quietly ominous. Instead of overwhelming the audience with grandiose sound, it uses minimalist elements, soft drones, sparse piano notes, and slow-building electronic textures, to create an undercurrent of unease. This restrained approach acts almost like a thread weaving through the scenes, subtly reminding us that danger is lurking just out of sight, even when things seem calm. It's the kind of music that creeps into your subconscious and raises the hairs on your neck without you even realizing it's there. This isn't the kind of score that shouts, "Disaster." It whispers, "Something isn't right," which makes the sudden eruptions of chaos hit even harder. A standout feature of the soundtrack is how it uses recurring motifs, small melodic or rhythmic ideas that reappear throughout the film. These motifs aren't bombastic themes but delicate musical signatures that accompany the family's journey, almost like sonic bookmarks. When the family shares quiet moments of hope, fear, or connection, these motifs re-emerge in different forms, sometimes slower, sometimes more fragmented, reflecting the evolving emotional landscape. This musical storytelling adds a layer of depth and continuity, tying scenes together and making the audience feel more connected to the characters' internal worlds even as the external situation worsens. One of the most striking aspects of Greenland's score is its strategic use of silence and near silence. In many scenes, the music almost completely drops away, leaving the raw soundscape of the world to fill the space. This absence of music is incredibly effective. It amplifies the realism and tension by focusing attention on small, everyday sounds like footsteps crunching on gravel, the rustling of clothes, or the ragged breathing of characters. These moments of quiet make the viewer hyper-aware, heightening suspense in a way that a full orchestral score couldn't. The contrast between silence and sound is like the sharp intake of breath before a plunge. It makes the emotional impact of what comes next feel more immediate and intense. When the music does come back in, it often does so gradually, building in layers that mimic the growing threat the characters face. Instead of sudden bursts of noise, the score swells with slow-building pulses and subtle electronic textures that ramp up tension steadily, creating a feeling of inevitability. It's as if the music is pushing the narrative forward, matching the characters' growing desperation and the impending disaster. These crescendos are never gratuitous. They feel earned and perfectly timed to support key moments of action or emotional intensity. The blending of electronic and orchestral elements in the soundtrack is another highlight. The use of modern synth sounds and atmospheric drones gives the music a contemporary, almost industrial feel, which fits the film's gritty, realistic tone. This fusion creates a sonic environment that feels like it belongs to a world on the edge, one where technology and nature collide in unsettling ways. The score's texture often mirrors the visuals. Cold, harsh, but layered with subtle beauty. It's a soundscape that envelopes the viewer, making the disaster feel more tangible and immediate. Sound design and score work hand in hand throughout Greenland, with the music carefully balanced so it doesn't overpower the dialogue or sound effects. You can hear every whispered conversation, every shouted warning, and every crash and explosion with crystal clarity. This mixing choice keeps you grounded in the story and the characters' experiences, preventing the score from becoming a distraction. Instead, it acts like an emotional guide, gently steering your reactions and deepening your immersion. The emotional tone of the score shifts as the story progresses, reflecting the character's journey from hope to despair and back again. During scenes of quiet family moments or fleeting hope, the music becomes warmer and softer, introducing gentle harmonies and subtle melodies that feel like a comforting embrace amid the chaos. Conversely, in scenes filled with fear, loss, or impending doom, the music grows colder, more fragmented, and sometimes dissonant, mirroring the fractured state of the characters' lives and the world around them. This dynamic emotional range helps keep the audience emotionally invested, creating a roller coaster of feelings that resonates long after the screen goes dark. The soundtrack also plays with texture and tone in creative ways. Sometimes, familiar instruments are processed or layered with electronic effects to create unfamiliar, eerie sounds that enhance the film's suspense and mystery. These sonic textures blur the line between music and sound design, making the score feel like an organic part of the film's environment rather than a separate layer. This approach adds richness to the auditory experience, pulling the viewer deeper into the unsettling atmosphere of a world unraveling. In moments of extreme tension or violence, the music often retreats, letting silence or diegetic sounds that naturally occur in the film's world, take center stage. This restraint makes those scenes feel raw and visceral, as if you're right there with the characters, experiencing the chaos firsthand. It's a bold choice that sets Greenland apart from many disaster films that rely on constant, overpowering music to keep the energy up. Throughout the film, the soundtrack acts like an invisible character, one that you might not always notice consciously but whose presence is felt deeply. It's a silent partner to the visuals and performances, enhancing mood, building suspense, and underscoring emotion without ever calling attention to itself. This delicate balance between presence and subtlety is what makes the score so effective. It doesn't compete with the story, it enriches it. All in all, Greenland's soundtrack and score are a brilliant example of how music can enhance a film's atmosphere and emotional power without shouting or forcing feelings. Through its minimalist compositions, smart use of motifs, seamless blending with sound design, and masterful control of silence, the score invites the audience into a tense, emotional journey that feels authentic and gripping. It's a reminder that sometimes the most memorable music in a film is the music that speaks softly but carries a big emotional punch. Let's really unpack the themes and messages in Greenland, because this movie isn't just about the spectacle of a comet smashing into Earth. It's packed with thoughtful, relatable ideas that make it stand out from typical disaster fare. What's fascinating is how these themes are woven naturally into the story and character journeys without ever feeling preachy or forced, which keeps the movie engaging and emotionally compelling all the way through. First up, the heart of the film beats strongest with the theme of family and human connection. From the moment the story kicks off, it's clear that survival isn't just about outrunning a deadly comet. It's about sticking together when the world crumbles around you. The movie dives deep into what family really means when everything else, security, routine, normal life, is stripped away. The characters' struggles to protect each other, their moments of vulnerability and strength, and the small acts of love and reassurance all paint a vivid picture of how human bonds are the ultimate lifeline. This theme isn't slapped on as a gimmick. It grows organically from the relationships and drives the emotional core of the film. Watching the family navigate through fear, loss, and uncertainty makes you reflect on your own connections and what you'd fight for when the stakes are life and death. Another big idea running through Greenland is the illusion of control. We live our lives believing we're the masters of our fate, planning ahead, making decisions, thinking we can handle whatever comes our way. The comet crashing toward Earth shatters this illusion brutally and instantly. The film does a great job showing how quickly even the best-laid plans can be upended by forces far beyond human control. This taps into a deep primal fear. How do you cope when everything you rely on is suddenly gone? The characters' responses vary wildly, which makes it feel authentic. Some panic, some freeze, some spring into action with fierce determination. This theme isn't just about disaster. It's about the human condition and how fragile our sense of security really is. It asks you to think about what happens when you lose the safety net you never realized you depended on so much. Hope is another powerful thread woven through the narrative, but it's handled with nuance. The film doesn't pretend this is an easy or guaranteed feeling. Hope is messy, fragile, and sometimes fleeting. Yet it's also portrayed as a choice and an act of defiance against overwhelming odds. When everything seems lost, the characters cling to hope not because it's blind optimism but because it fuels their will to survive and keep fighting. This theme plays out in subtle moments, like a shared glance, a whispered promise, or a moment of calm in the chaos, that carry emotional weight without being overdone. The film suggests that hope isn't just an emotion. It's the spark that keeps us human in the darkest times. Greenland also touches on social themes related to survival and fairness, which adds complexity beyond the family drama. The film quietly explores who gets access to safety and who gets left out when disaster strikes. There are scenes that hint at issues of class, privilege, and power. Who controls the evacuation, how decisions are made, and what happens when institutions break down. This raises thought-provoking questions about justice and inequality in crisis situations. These ideas aren't hammered home but are woven into the fabric of the story, encouraging viewers to think about real-world implications while being drawn into the fictional tension. It's a smart layer that adds depth and encourages reflection about society and our collective responsibilities. Fear is another theme the film explores in a refreshing way. It doesn't just use fear as a cheap tool to ramp up tension. It digs into how fear operates on multiple levels, external and internal. The characters experience fear differently, and their reactions feel real and varied, not stereotypical or one-dimensional. Fear drives some characters to heroic actions, others to mistakes or paralysis. The film shows fear as something human and universal, something that shapes decisions and relationships under pressure. This nuanced portrayal makes the story feel more grounded and relatable, highlighting the messy, complicated nature of survival instincts. The theme of sacrifice quietly but powerfully runs throughout the film. Without giving too much away, Greenland doesn't shy away from showing that survival comes with difficult choices and personal costs. The characters are faced with moments where they must weigh their own safety against protecting others, and these choices carry emotional consequences that linger. This theme adds gravity to the narrative, reminding viewers that survival isn't just about physical escape. It's about the emotional and moral toll disaster exacts. It makes the story resonate on a deeper level because the stakes aren't just life or death. They're about what kind of people the characters choose to be when pushed to the edge. A fascinating contrast the film plays with is the balance between human fragility and strength. The characters are shown in all their vulnerability, scared, uncertain, flawed, but also in moments of incredible courage, ingenuity, and resilience. This duality feels authentic and makes the film's portrayal of survival more honest and less heroic movie cliché. We see people who break down and people who rise up, sometimes within the same scene, which keeps the emotional tone rich and complex. It's a reminder that being human means living with both weakness and strength intertwined. There's also an undercurrent of environmental awareness woven into the story. The comet is a stark reminder of nature's unpredictable and overwhelming power, putting humanity's technological advancements and sense of control into perspective. Without being preachy, the film hints at the fragile balance between humans and the natural world, nudging viewers to consider how small we are in the grand scheme of things. It's a subtle, thought-provoking message that adds another layer of meaning to the disaster scenario. What's really impressive is how Greenland manages to tackle all these heavy themes while staying entertaining and engaging. The movie never feels weighed down or like it's trying too hard to teach a lesson. Instead, the themes emerge naturally from the characters' experiences and the unfolding drama, making you think and feel without pulling you out of the story. You're caught up in the suspense and action, but these ideas linger in the back of your mind, making the film stick with you long after it ends. So when you watch Greenland, you're not just watching a disaster unfold. You're invited to reflect on family, hope, fear, fairness, sacrifice, and humanity's place in the universe. The film masterfully blends thrilling entertainment with thoughtful, relatable messages, creating an experience that's both gripping and meaningful. It's a reminder that sometimes the best disaster stories are the ones that show us not just how we survive the end of the world, but how we live in it together. When diving deep into the visual effects and CGI of Greenland, it's clear that the filmmakers struck a careful and clever balance between spectacle and storytelling, creating a disaster experience that feels both massive and intimately real. The comet hurtling toward Earth and the subsequent chaos are depicted with a level of detail and realism that's genuinely immersive, and the effects never feel like an obvious digital overlay pulling you out of the story. Instead, they're seamlessly woven into the fabric of the film's world, making the catastrophe feel tangible and urgent. This natural blending of effects is no small feat, especially in a movie where the stakes are cosmic in scale but the focus remains intensely personal. One of the first things you notice is how the CGI is handled with restraint and precision. It's not a non-stop barrage of flashy explosions or over-the-top destruction, which can often feel exhausting or cartoonish in disaster films. Instead, Greenland uses visual effects sparingly but effectively, carefully picking moments where the digital magic enhances tension and emotional impact. The comet itself looks like a real massive object hurtling through space and atmosphere, glowing with threatening heat and breaking apart into chunks that create secondary dangers. The falling debris feels heavy and unpredictable, with a sense of weight that you can almost feel through the screen. This isn't just spectacle for spectacle's sake, it's spectacle that serves the story. What truly elevates the visual experience is the way CGI is married to practical effects and real-world sets. The film wisely doesn't rely solely on computers. It uses physical props, real locations, and practical stunts to ground the action. When buildings collapse or cars skid through dust and debris, you sense that the actors are interacting with real elements rather than green screens, which brings authenticity to their performances. This practical foundation makes the CGI-enhanced destruction feel like a natural extension of the environment rather than a digital add-on. The dust clouds, smoke plumes, and fireballs are layered on top of real footage, giving the scenes a gritty tactile texture that keeps you fully immersed. The lighting and color grading also work hand in hand with the visual effects to set the mood. The film shifts from the bright, almost normal-looking early moments to a darker, more oppressive atmosphere as ash and smoke fill the sky. The visual effects reinforce this transition beautifully, with shadows lengthening and visibility dropping, amplifying the sense of danger and claustrophobia. The flickering streetlights, the eerie glow of fires in the distance, and the dull orange hue of the polluted air all contribute to a visual palette that feels cohesive and emotionally resonant. One of the most gripping uses of CGI comes in scenes showing the widespread devastation. Entire cityscapes crumbling, highways breaking apart, and infrastructure failing under the relentless assault of comet debris. These moments feel massive without ever losing their connection to the human element. Instead of overwhelming you with spectacle, the effects work to highlight the fragility of the world the characters are fighting to survive in. You see the environment shift in ways that are believable yet shocking, making the threat feel ever-present and real. The film also shines in the smaller-scale effects that build tension and realism. Shattered glass, flickering lights, dust settling after an impact. These little touches add texture and depth to the disaster environment. They serve as reminders that destruction isn't just loud and explosive. It's also about the creeping breakdown of everyday life. These details might seem minor, but they play a huge role in making the disaster feel lived in and authentic. There's also a clever pacing to how the visual effects are deployed. Instead of front-loading all the destruction in the beginning or saving the best effects for a big finale, Greenland spreads out its visual intensity. Moments of calm and quiet are punctuated by sudden bursts of chaos. Falling debris here, a collapsing building there, keeping the audience on edge and avoiding any sense of monotony. This rhythm helps maintain suspense and keeps the disaster feeling unpredictable, which is crucial for engagement. One standout element is how the visual effects complement the emotional beats of the story. For instance, when the family is navigating through crumbling city streets or a damaged shelter, the destruction isn't just background noise. It reflects their internal struggles and the escalating danger they face. The visual chaos mirrors the characters' fear, urgency, and determination, adding layers of meaning to the scenes. This thoughtful integration shows that the effects are designed to enhance the narrative, not just dazzle the audience. Even in high-intensity action scenes, the CGI doesn't overshadow the characters but supports their journey. Whether it's a narrow escape from a collapsing building or a tense moment trapped under debris, the effects add to the feeling of peril without stealing the spotlight. This careful balance between spectacle and story is what makes the visual effects feel like a natural part of the film's language. Looking at the technical craftsmanship, the visual effects team clearly put a lot of work into creating realistic physics and textures. The way debris falls and interacts with the environment follows believable patterns, and the lighting on digital elements matches the real-world footage perfectly. This attention to detail is crucial because it prevents any jarring moments that would pull viewers out of the experience. The seamless blending of practical and digital effects is a testament to the skill and vision behind the scenes. Finally, the visual effects in Greenland manage to keep the scale of the disaster epic without losing the film's grounded tone. The comet and its aftermath feel like genuine threats on a global level, but the effects always bring the audience back to the personal story at the core. This balance between grand spectacle and intimate drama is rare in disaster movies, and it's a big part of why the visuals feel so satisfying and meaningful. In summary, the visual effects and CGI in Greenland are masterfully executed to serve the story's emotional and narrative needs. They bring the danger and destruction vividly to life without ever feeling artificial or overwhelming. By blending practical effects with digital artistry and focusing on realism and detail, the film creates a believable, immersive disaster world that keeps you glued to the screen and emotionally invested from start to finish. It's a perfect example of how smart effects work hand in hand with storytelling to elevate a movie beyond just visual spectacle. When you really sink into the world of Greenland, the first thing that grabs your attention is how the set design and locations come together to build a universe that feels strikingly authentic and fully immersive. The production doesn't go for over-the-top futuristic sets or exaggerated cityscapes. Instead, it opts for a grounded, relatable atmosphere that makes the unfolding catastrophe feel unervingly close to home. This choice is a masterstroke because it turns what could be a distant, high-concept disaster into something deeply personal and emotionally gripping. You don't just watch the comet destruction. You feel like you're living it alongside the characters. The film kicks off in very recognizable settings. Ordinary suburban neighborhoods, familiar city streets, and homes that look lived in, with all the little details that make a place feel like someone's personal space. You see cluttered countertops, family photos, worn furniture, and everyday objects that suggest real lives behind the walls. This subtle but rich production design grounds the character's experience in reality. The stakes become real because the environments feel like places any of us could call home. When disaster hits these spaces, the sense of loss and urgency is amplified. This isn't just some abstract event. It's tearing apart lives and memories. Moving beyond the home, the film's use of various locations broadens the scope while maintaining that authenticity. The streets bustle with frantic activity as people scramble to escape or secure safety, and this chaotic energy is captured through detailed, thoughtful set dressing. You get a strong sense of community in the environments, which makes the destruction feel even more harrowing. Seeing familiar urban and suburban spaces devolve into wreckage and evacuation zones builds a layered narrative about societal collapse and human resilience. The production design carefully avoids clichés or excessive dramatization, favoring subtle, realistic touches that make each setting feel grounded. As the story progresses, the environment undergoes a transformation that mirrors the growing tension and despair. The filmmakers cleverly integrate practical effects, such as debris piles, overturned vehicles, broken windows, and damaged infrastructure, to physically manifest the comet's destruction. These elements don't just sit in the background. They actively shape the character's journey and amplify the stakes. The cracked pavement, ash-coated streets, and smoky horizons all contribute to a world in distress, and these details make the disaster visceral and immediate. The tangible nature of the destruction is enhanced by the production team's use of textures and physical materials, which give the scenes weight and realism that purely digital effects can't always achieve. What's particularly engaging about the set design in Greenland is the way it plays with scale and intimacy. Some scenes take place in cramped, claustrophobic spaces like shelters, cars, and small rooms where the family and other survivors are packed together. These confined locations heighten the emotional tension and create a palpable sense of urgency and fear. You feel the pressure closing in with every breath and movement. On the other hand, the film contrasts this with wide, expansive shots of devastated cityscapes, highways lined with abandoned cars, and sprawling evacuation zones. This interplay between close quarters and large-scale destruction keeps the visual storytelling dynamic and compelling, constantly shifting the emotional tone. The locations themselves serve almost as silent storytellers, reflecting different phases of the disaster and human response. For example, safe houses and shelters feel temporary and fragile, underscoring the precariousness of survival. Military checkpoints and evacuation points reveal societal attempts to maintain order amid chaos. These varied environments give the story texture and depth, illustrating how the disaster impacts different layers of society and different types of spaces, from private homes to public institutions. The props scattered throughout these sets deserve special mention for their role in storytelling. Everyday objects like packed suitcases, medical kits, radios, flashlights, and family heirlooms are thoughtfully placed to reveal backstory and character priorities without a single word. These small details enrich the environments, making the world feel textured and real. They subtly remind us of what's at stake: lives interrupted, memories threatened, hopes for survival, and help the audience emotionally connect with the character's plight. Visually, the production design leans into a muted color palette that fits the film's serious and tense mood. The colors are mostly natural and subdued. Grays, browns, and dusty tones dominate, which helps the disaster elements stand out starkly when they appear. Lighting plays a key role too. Scenes transition from the bright, sunlit normalcy of pre-disaster life to the shadowy, ash-filled gloom of an Earth under siege. This shift in lighting and atmosphere complements the evolving narrative and creates a visual metaphor for the loss of safety and security. Shooting on real locations adds another layer of authenticity to the film. Instead of relying heavily on studio sets or CGI backdrops, the filmmakers chose actual city streets, homes, and public spaces, which lends a texture and realism that's hard to replicate artificially. These genuine settings anchor the story, making the disaster feel like it's unfolding in places that exist beyond the screen. This approach also allows the actors to interact with tangible environments, enhancing the naturalism of their performances. The set design also skillfully supports the film's pacing and emotional beats. When tension spikes, the cramped interiors and cluttered spaces make you feel trapped alongside the characters. When the story calls for a broader perspective, sweeping shots of ruined landscapes and evacuation convoys remind you of the disaster's epic scale. This visual choreography helps to maintain audience engagement by varying the visual rhythm and emphasizing key moments. In scenes where the danger feels most immediate, such as navigating through wrecked neighborhoods or waiting in shelters filled with anxious survivors, the production design creates immersive environments that practically hum with tension. The cluttered, chaotic spaces reflect the characters' internal states: confused, scared, desperate. This mirroring of setting and emotion is a subtle but powerful storytelling technique that deepens your connection to the narrative. Overall, the set design and locations in Greenland do much more than provide a backdrop. They actively shape the story and the viewer's emotional experience. They make the world feel fully realized, believable, and compelling, inviting the audience to step inside a reality where disaster strikes not just in grand spectacle, but in the messy, intimate details of everyday life disrupted. This careful attention to production design is a big part of why the film's tension and emotional resonance hit home so effectively. The dialogue and script in Greenland really stand out because they manage to keep things feeling fresh, natural, and emotionally resonant in a genre where characters often end up sounding like walking plot devices. From the very first exchanges, the writing immediately grounds you in the reality of these characters' lives, making them feel like genuine people rather than just survivors in a disaster flick. The script takes care to avoid the overused, overly dramatic disaster movie clichés, instead focusing on authentic conversations that reveal the characters' personalities, relationships, and stakes in a believable way. One of the most impressive things about the script is how it captures the rhythm of real-life conversations, especially when people are under extreme stress. The dialogue flows with interruptions, hesitations, overlapping voices, and those small moments where what's left unsaid carries as much weight as the spoken words. It's these little details that make the family dynamics feel rich and layered. You can almost hear the nervous energy crackling beneath the surface as characters talk, sometimes trying to calm each other, sometimes snapping out of frustration or fear, because that's how people really behave when they're scared and desperate. This naturalism is refreshing, and it draws you closer into the emotional world of the characters. At the same time, the script doesn't shy away from injecting some moments of levity and humor, which is essential in keeping the tone balanced and the audience engaged. These aren't forced comedic lines or awkward attempts at jokes. Rather, they feel like spontaneous human moments that come from how people use humor to cope in tense situations. Whether it's a sarcastic quip, a teasing comment, or a quick-witted response, these bits of sharpness add personality to the characters and remind us that even when the world is falling apart, people find ways to connect and lighten the mood. It's this blend of seriousness with humor that gives the dialogue a dynamic quality, making it feel relatable and alive. Emotionally, the dialogue shines in the quieter, more intimate scenes where the characters open up about their fears, regrets, and hopes. These moments are handled with subtlety and sincerity. The writing never pushes the characters into melodrama or over-explanation. Instead, it allows the emotions to unfold naturally through tone, pauses, and carefully chosen words. Lines expressing vulnerability or determination resonate because they feel earned within the story's context. These heartfelt exchanges provide windows into the characters' inner worlds and make the stakes feel personal. Not just about surviving the disaster but about what survival means for their lives and relationships. The script also excels at creating memorable and impactful lines that linger in your mind after the movie ends. These aren't necessarily grandiose or poetic speeches but simple, powerful statements that encapsulate the film's core themes. When characters talk about family, sacrifice, or hope, the writing distills complex emotions into straightforward, poignant words that hit home emotionally. These lines serve as thematic anchors, reinforcing what the characters are fighting for and the emotional heartbeat of the film without feeling preachy or heavy-handed. Dialogue pacing is another strong suit of the script. It skillfully adapts to the emotional tempo of each scene. Fast-paced, clipped exchanges heighten the tension during moments of crisis, while slower, more deliberate conversations allow for reflection and emotional depth. This ebb and flow in the dialogue rhythm helps maintain engagement throughout the film and prevents scenes from feeling static or overly dense. The way the script uses pauses and silences is just as important as the spoken words, letting the audience breathe and absorb the emotional weight where needed. An especially clever aspect of the writing is how it uses subtext and implication rather than explicit exposition. Characters don't always spell out their feelings or the situation directly. Instead, the script relies on tone, context, and unspoken understanding between characters to convey deeper meanings. This technique invites viewers to actively interpret the dialogue, adding layers to the storytelling and making the experience more immersive. It's a subtle art that the film handles well, avoiding the trap of clunky, on-the-nose explanations common in disaster movies. Supporting characters benefit from the same level of attention in the dialogue, with each given distinct voices and personalities through their lines. Even minor characters have conversations that feel purposeful and true to who they are, adding texture and credibility to the world building. These small but deliberate touches enrich the overall narrative, making every interaction count and keeping the audience invested not just in the main family but in the broader human tapestry around them. The script also smartly balances the practical need for conveying information with maintaining naturalism. It avoids awkward info dumps by weaving important details seamlessly into conversations, whether it's about evacuation plans, government responses, or survival strategies. This keeps the exposition from dragging down the pace and ensures the dialogue feels organic, even when serving essential plot functions. Ultimately, the dialogue and script of Greenland work hand in hand to create an emotionally charged, believable, and engaging story. The writing gives life and depth to the characters, making their fears, hopes, and struggles resonate long after the credits roll. It's this blend of realism, emotional sincerity, and well-placed wit that elevates the film beyond just another disaster spectacle, turning it into a compelling human story told through memorable, impactful conversations. When it comes to genre execution, Greenland doesn't just check off the usual disaster movie boxes. It really takes those familiar elements and spins them in ways that keep you on your toes and emotionally invested. Right from the start, it's clear the film knows what genre it's playing in. There's the impending global catastrophe with a massive comet heading straight for Earth, government chaos, frantic evacuation attempts, and of course, the ever-present ticking clock that disaster movies thrive on. But instead of letting these ingredients fall into predictable territory, Greenland spices things up by focusing on the very human side of disaster and blending in fresh storytelling choices that make the whole experience feel more grounded and intense. One of the key ways Greenland balances genre conventions is by zooming in on the personal drama of one family, making their survival journey the emotional core of the film. While many disaster movies bombard you with sprawling destruction scenes and multiple character storylines, this film keeps it tight and intimate. The focus on a small group, John Garrity, his wife Allison, and their son Nathan, means that the high-stakes action is always filtered through the lens of family bonds and emotional stakes. This narrative choice elevates the movie beyond just spectacle. You're not only watching explosions and chaos, you're rooting for real people trying to hold on to each other in the midst of utter upheaval. Action and suspense are handled with a clever sense of pacing and realism. Instead of overwhelming the audience with constant high-octane sequences, Greenland knows when to dial up the intensity and when to slow down to let tension simmer. There are heart-pounding moments, like desperate rushes through traffic jams, tense standoffs, and close encounters with disaster, that feel immediate and visceral. But these are balanced with quieter, more reflective scenes where the characters process what's happening, plan their next moves, or wrestle with fear and hope. This rhythm keeps viewers engaged on multiple levels, mixing adrenaline-fueled sequences with emotional payoff, which is a hallmark of effective genre filmmaking. Humor in Greenland is subtle but smartly placed. Instead of relying on slapstick or obvious comic relief, the film injects moments of lightness that feel authentic to the characters and their situation. For example, some witty exchanges between John and Allison or brief sarcastic remarks pop up naturally amidst the tension. This humor works like a pressure valve. It releases some of the built-up tension without undercutting the gravity of the situation. It's a nuanced touch that humanizes the characters and adds dimension to the storytelling, preventing the film from becoming relentlessly bleak or formulaic. The film respects the essential disaster genre tropes, like the looming global threat, the urgency of evacuation, and the breakdown of social order, but it also subverts some expectations to keep things fresh. Rather than having a single hero save the day through impossible feats, Greenland portrays survival as a messy, uncertain process that often depends on luck, quick thinking, and difficult moral choices. This adds a level of realism and unpredictability that's sometimes missing in disaster movies, where everything can feel too scripted or sanitized. It's refreshing to see a film acknowledge that surviving a catastrophe isn't about perfect heroism but about grit, resilience, and sometimes making gut-wrenching decisions. Visually, the film leans into the claustrophobia and chaos that the disaster genre thrives on, but it also uses these elements to build atmosphere and deepen the emotional stakes. The cramped, tense spaces, like packed evacuation convoys, crowded airports, and makeshift shelters, create a palpable sense of urgency and confinement. This contrasts with the vast, open shots of the approaching comet and the destruction it causes, underscoring the fragility of human life in the face of cosmic forces. This visual approach amplifies the story's tension and supports the film's themes of vulnerability and survival. Suspense in Greenland is more than just about big explosions or disasters. It comes from the smaller, more personal dangers the characters face. Whether it's navigating hostile crowds, dealing with bureaucratic obstacles, or racing against time to reach safety, the film builds tension through scenarios that feel grounded and relatable. This kind of suspense keeps the audience invested because it's not just spectacle. It's about how people behave under pressure, how trust and fear collide, and how quick decisions can mean life or death. It's a smarter, more human take on suspense that fits the film's overall grounded tone. Fresh ideas come through in how Greenland blends the disaster genre with a family drama at its heart. The emotional core isn't just about escaping destruction. It's about protecting loved ones, making sacrifices, and confronting what it means to survive together. This focus on family adds depth and emotional complexity that many disaster movies gloss over in favor of action. It's this personal angle that makes the film feel more intimate and compelling, turning a global catastrophe into a story about individual courage, love, and resilience. The film also brings in a socio-political dimension by showing the chaos of government response, the breakdown of order, and the scramble for resources and shelter. These elements add a layer of realism and provoke thought about how society might react under extreme stress. It's not just a backdrop for the action but a reflection on human nature and social dynamics during crises. This gives Greenland a richer texture and some intellectual heft that elevates it beyond being a mere spectacle. Overall, Greenland respects the disaster genre's conventions but isn't afraid to bend and reshape them. It skillfully balances adrenaline-pumping action, suspenseful sequences, moments of humor, and heartfelt drama. The result is a film that feels both familiar and new, delivering the thrills you expect while exploring deeper emotional and thematic territory. This smart and nuanced approach to genre execution makes Greenland more than just another disaster movie. It's a gripping human story that stays with you long after the danger has passed. Greenland isn't just about spectacular explosions and desperate escapes. It also quietly weaves in some thoughtful social and cultural commentary that makes the film resonate on a deeper level. What's clever about this is that these themes don't come across as heavy-handed or preachy. Instead, they're naturally embedded in the story and the characters' experiences, which makes the film feel more grounded and relatable even amidst the chaos of an apocalyptic disaster. One of the most striking social themes in Greenland is the issue of inequality, especially in how access to safety and resources is distributed during a crisis. The film doesn't shy away from showing how privilege plays a huge role in who gets evacuated and who's left behind. From the beginning, you see the chaos and confusion as people scramble for seats on government evacuation flights. Those with connections, wealth, or special status get priority, while the rest are left to fend for themselves. This doesn't just create tension between characters, it also prompts viewers to consider uncomfortable questions about fairness and the value of human life when society is pushed to its breaking point. The film presents this disparity matter-of-factly. No moralizing, just an honest look at the reality many might fear if disaster struck. Government and authority are another big area where Greenland offers some nuanced commentary. Instead of the usual black-and-white portrayal where officials are either heroic or corrupt, the movie paints a more complex picture. You see leaders struggling under enormous pressure, trying to maintain order and make impossible decisions with limited information and resources. The bureaucratic hurdles, the breakdown in communication, and the moments of cold pragmatism show a system that's far from perfect. It reflects real-world anxieties about how governments handle emergencies, how sometimes people feel abandoned, mistrusted, or manipulated by those in power. The film captures this fragile trust without turning cynical, highlighting how social order is a delicate thing that can crumble quickly when people are scared and desperate. At the heart of the film is the Garrity family, whose story mirrors a universal experience of fear and hope in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. Their journey to survive is about much more than avoiding death. It's about the instinct to protect loved ones, the strain of making agonizing decisions, and the small moments of kindness and courage that emerge even in disaster. This focus on family taps into deeply human emotions that resonate especially in today's world, where ongoing crises, whether environmental, political, or health-related, can make the future feel unpredictable and frightening. The film captures this collective anxiety while also offering a message of resilience and connection, reminding us that even when everything seems lost, people find ways to support and fight for each other. Culturally, Greenland reflects a snapshot of contemporary society, portraying a diverse group of people navigating the crisis together. While it doesn't overtly explore cultural differences or identity politics, the film shows a realistic America made up of people from different backgrounds who must cooperate to survive. This subtle portrayal adds depth to the story, hinting at broader social dynamics without distracting from the main narrative. The disaster strips away many social facades, revealing both cooperation and conflict, which feels authentic to real-world emergencies where stress and fear bring out a range of human behaviors. The film also lightly touches on environmental themes, even if indirectly. The comet hurtling toward Earth can be seen as a metaphor for global threats like climate change, catastrophic events that loom over humanity, demanding urgent action but often ignored until the last minute. Though Greenland isn't an environmental thriller per se, it captures that sense of impending doom and the scramble to respond, which echoes real-world concerns about how we deal with planetary crises. This underlying message adds an extra layer of meaning to the film, making it not just a story about survival but also a reflection on humanity's relationship with the natural world. What's impressive is how Greenland manages to balance these heavy themes with the adrenaline and emotional intensity of a disaster movie. The social and cultural commentary never feels forced or out of place. It's part of the fabric of the story and the characters' experiences. As you follow the Garrity family through danger and uncertainty, you're also absorbing subtle reflections on fairness, authority, community, and environmental responsibility. The film respects the audience's intelligence, trusting that viewers can pick up on these layers without needing overt exposition. In many ways, Greenland acts like a mirror held up to contemporary society, showing how extreme situations reveal the best and worst of human nature. It highlights inequalities, tests trust in institutions, explores cultural coexistence under pressure, and touches on environmental anxieties, all while delivering a gripping, personal story of survival. This blend of thrilling disaster action and thoughtful social insight gives the film a richness that elevates it beyond typical genre fare. By weaving these ideas naturally into the narrative, Greenland not only entertains but also invites reflection on how we might respond if faced with our own end-of-the-world scenarios. It sparks questions about who gets saved, what it means to lead and follow in crisis, how communities hold together or fall apart, and how we confront looming threats as a species. This subtle yet effective social and cultural commentary makes the film memorable and relevant, giving viewers more than just thrills. They get a story that lingers, nudging them to think about the world we live in and how fragile it can be. Greenland has a way of pulling you into its world and holding you there, not just with jaw-dropping action sequences but with an emotional intensity that hits home on a very personal level. The film crafts its audience engagement by making the stakes feel real and the characters' emotions palpable, so every scene resonates far beyond the surface-level thrills. This is not your typical disaster movie that just dazzles with explosions and then leaves you cold. Greenland makes you feel like you're on the ride with the characters, sharing their fears, hopes, and frustrations in a way that's surprisingly intimate for a film about an apocalyptic event. From the very beginning, the film establishes a strong emotional connection through the central family, the Garritys. John, Allison, and Nathan aren't just faces running from danger. They're a family with relatable struggles, worries, and strengths. The way their relationship is portrayed feels authentic and grounded, making it impossible not to root for them. You get the sense that their love for each other is what fuels their determination to survive, and that adds a powerful emotional layer to the intense situations they face. This family focus transforms the disaster from a distant catastrophe into a personal story about human connection and survival. What really makes the audience engagement so effective is the film's masterful balance between moments of high tension and quieter, more reflective scenes. The pacing allows you to catch your breath between heart-pounding chases and chaotic evacuations, giving you space to process what the characters are going through emotionally. These quieter moments often highlight the human side of the crisis. John's worries as a father, Allison's fierce protectiveness, Nathan's innocence and confusion, which makes the stakes feel even higher. It's in these emotional beats that the film becomes more than a spectacle. It becomes a mirror reflecting our own fears and hopes. The film also knows how to shock and surprise in ways that keep viewers on the edge of their seats. You never quite know who will make it out alive or what new obstacle might come barreling down next. This unpredictability feeds the suspense and keeps the audience fully engaged, as you're constantly guessing and emotionally invested in the outcome. The filmmakers use this to great effect, weaving in moments of genuine surprise that jolt the audience out of complacency and remind you just how fragile life can be in extreme situations. Excitement builds naturally as the clock ticks down to the comet's impact, and this tension is amplified by the emotional bonds you've formed with the characters. Each action sequence carries weight because it's not just about dodging debris, it's about the survival of people you care about. The film's ability to fuse emotional depth with adrenaline-pumping sequences elevates it beyond the usual disaster movie fare. You feel every heartbeat, every gasp, every desperate sprint alongside the characters, making the cinematic experience immersive and gripping. But Greenland doesn't rely solely on fear and tension to engage its audience. It also offers moments of warmth, humor, and humanity that create emotional variety and deepen the connection. There are subtle jokes and exchanges that lighten the mood without undercutting the seriousness of the situation. These little moments of levity remind viewers that even in the worst crises, human spirit and kindness can shine through. It's these contrasts, the terror and the tenderness, that make the emotional journey feel real and balanced. The film's themes invite viewers to think beyond the immediate survival story, sparking questions that linger long after watching. Who deserves a chance at survival? How far would you go to protect your family? What does society value when everything is on the line? These questions are never spelled out explicitly but are embedded in the narrative and characters' choices, encouraging thoughtful reflection and discussion. This intellectual engagement adds another dimension to the film's appeal, making it more than just an emotional thrill ride. What's more, Greenland encourages repeat viewings because of its layered storytelling. On a first watch, the suspense and emotional roller coaster dominate your experience. But returning to the film allows you to appreciate the nuances, the small details and performances, the social commentary woven into the plot, and the subtle ways the film explores human nature under pressure. This depth rewards attentive viewers and keeps the movie fresh, encouraging fans to dive deeper into its world. In terms of eliciting strong reactions, Greenland covers the full spectrum. There are moments that can make you laugh softly, moments that squeeze your heart tight, and moments that shock you with their sudden intensity. The film's ability to evoke such varied emotions keeps the audience fully engaged and invested. It's a testament to the filmmaker's skill that these emotional beats never feel manipulative. Instead, they feel earned and authentic. Ultimately, Greenland succeeds in emotionally resonating with its audience by telling a story that's thrilling, heartfelt, and thought-provoking all at once. It invites you to experience the panic and hope, the fear and love, the chaos and quiet courage of its characters, making the film a compelling journey from beginning to end. This blend of emotional depth, suspense, and relatable human drama is what makes the movie stick with viewers long after the last frame, sparking conversations, reflections, and maybe even a desire to watch it again to catch everything you might have missed the first time around. When you take a close look at Greenland alongside the vast lineup of disaster movies that have come before it, you start to see how it manages to stand out in a genre that's often packed with similar beats and familiar storylines. Disaster films have a pretty set formula. You have the looming catastrophe, the race against time, the brave heroes or ordinary people thrown into extraordinary situations, and usually some big show-stopping destruction scenes. But Greenland doesn't just settle for checking off these boxes. It breathes new life into the genre by grounding its story in very human emotions and relationships, rather than relying solely on spectacular visual effects or epic heroics. This makes it feel both fresh and deeply engaging, like a disaster film you haven't quite seen before. Think about the big-name disaster movies that most people remember. Armageddon, Deep Impact, The Day After Tomorrow. All of these tend to focus on grand-scale efforts to save the entire planet, often with a large ensemble cast of scientists, politicians, or rescue teams. Greenland takes a much more intimate approach. Instead of the save-the-world narrative, it zooms in on one family's survival journey, making the stakes feel intensely personal. This shift in perspective means the audience isn't just watching the disaster unfold from a distance. You're right there with John Garrity and his family, feeling their fear, their hope, and their desperation. This makes the movie's tension more relatable and the emotional punches land harder, distinguishing it from many of its genre predecessors. If you compare Greenland to The Impossible, another survival film centered on a family caught in a natural disaster, there are some clear parallels in terms of emotional storytelling. Both films focus heavily on family bonds and human resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. However, The Impossible is based on a true story, a tsunami, and emphasizes real-world disaster realism. Greenland, on the other hand, blends realism with a thrilling sci-fi premise, a comet hurtling toward Earth. This mix of believable characters and high-concept disaster science fiction creates a unique flavor that combines emotional grounding with epic stakes. It's this fusion that sets Greenland apart and keeps it from feeling like just another survival drama. When stacked against more recent disaster or apocalypse movies like Don't Look Up or Geostorm, Greenland also offers a different vibe. While Don't Look Up uses satire to comment on societal and political failures, and Geostorm dives into over-the-top visual spectacle, Greenland opts for straightforward, no-nonsense storytelling. It tells its story with a steady, grounded tone, focusing on the immediate human experience of disaster rather than broad social commentary or flashy effects. This directness makes the movie accessible and emotionally gripping, especially for viewers who want suspense and heart without distractions. Director Ric Roman Waugh's style shines through in Greenland. Known for his ability to craft tight, character-driven thrillers like Angel Has Fallen, Waugh brings a similar intensity here, but on a much larger scale. Instead of focusing on gunfights or espionage, he channels his knack for suspense into a story about ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. The result is a disaster film that's less about spectacle for spectacle's sake and more about the tension, emotion, and survival instinct that comes from truly caring about the characters. This makes Greenland feel like a natural evolution in his filmmaking. A step up in scope but with the same grounded intensity and attention to character. Another way Greenland differentiates itself is in how it handles social themes. Disaster movies often avoid or gloss over issues like social inequality, or they might dive into them too heavily and risk feeling preachy. Greenland finds a smart middle ground, subtly weaving in questions about who gets saved and who's left behind without overshadowing the story. This adds a layer of complexity and modern relevance that many disaster movies miss, making the film feel more thoughtful and nuanced without slowing down the action or emotional drama. The pacing and tone also set Greenland apart. It doesn't rush through its story, nor does it drag. The film finds a rhythm that balances edge-of-your-seat suspense with quieter, reflective moments that allow the audience to connect emotionally with the characters. Many disaster films struggle with pacing, either overloading you with non-stop action or bogging you down with exposition, but Greenland keeps you engaged throughout, which is a huge part of why it feels so effective and enjoyable. So when you put Greenland in conversation with its genre peers, it's clear that while it respects the disaster film blueprint, it also shakes things up in meaningful ways. It offers a gripping, emotionally charged story that combines the thrills of a high-stakes apocalypse with the warmth and complexity of family drama. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel entirely but tweaks the formula enough to keep it exciting, relatable, and memorable. For fans of disaster movies who might be tired of the usual tropes, Greenland provides a fresh perspective. One that's both exhilarating and heartfelt, grounded and epic, intimate and grand. It's that blend that makes it stand out as a unique and compelling entry in the disaster film genre. Peeling back the layers of Greenland, it becomes clear that the film is a treasure trove of symbolism and metaphor, cleverly woven into the fabric of what might initially appear to be just a high-stakes disaster thriller. The story's heart beats not only with the pulse of survival but also with these deeper, often subtle thematic currents that give the film an emotional and intellectual weight beyond the immediate spectacle of a comet hurtling toward Earth. These layers invite viewers to engage with the film on multiple levels, both as an adrenaline-fueled ride and as a thoughtful meditation on human nature, society, and resilience. Starting with the comet itself, this celestial menace isn't simply a plot device. It functions as a grand metaphor for the uncontrollable forces that life throws at us. It's this massive, inevitable event that no one can escape or influence. Nature's ultimate reminder of our vulnerability. But it also represents change and upheaval, shaking the foundations of normal life and forcing every character to confront not just external danger but internal fears and priorities. The comet's silent, unstoppable presence throughout the film acts like a looming existential question. How do we face the end of the world when it's no longer a distant possibility but an imminent reality? This metaphor ripples through the narrative, framing the characters' struggles as part of a universal human condition. Then there's the film's core motif of family and protection. The journey of John Garrity and his family through a crumbling world is not only a literal survival story, but also a powerful symbol of human connection as a source of strength. The lengths John goes to in order to protect his wife and son echo the timeless theme of love as a lifeline in chaos. Their family unit becomes a metaphor for hope, stability, and meaning amidst destruction. It's fascinating how Greenland uses this intimate, personal story to elevate the stakes, because the danger is no longer abstract or global. It's deeply emotional. The recurring theme of family serves as a poignant reminder that no matter how vast the disaster, it's the personal bonds that anchor us and give us a reason to fight on. The film's visual language also carries heavy symbolic weight. The stark contrasts between safe zones, devastated urban wastelands, and desolate highways aren't just practical settings. They visually represent social hierarchies and inequalities. The checkpoints, barricades, and restricted areas become metaphors for privilege and exclusion, subtly commenting on who gets saved and who is left to fend for themselves. These visual cues quietly highlight societal divisions without explicitly stating them, inviting the audience to think about disaster not only as a natural event but also as a social one. This layering adds an important dimension to the story, making the film more than just a spectacle of destruction. it becomes a mirror reflecting real-world social dynamics. Water and storms appear repeatedly throughout the film, serving as rich metaphors that deepen the emotional resonance. Water, with its dual nature of destruction and renewal, acts as a symbol of the uncontrollable forces shaping the characters' lives. The floods, rain, and turbulent weather scenes underscore the chaos and emotional turmoil they experience. At the same time, these natural elements carry the promise of cleansing and new beginnings, hinting at the possibility of hope and rebirth even amid devastation. The storm becomes a motif for transformation, the chaotic process through which destruction makes way for potential renewal. Character struggles themselves unfold as metaphors for different facets of the human experience. John embodies the archetypal protector, carrying the burden of responsibility for his family's survival, which taps into a universal human instinct to safeguard loved ones and preserve a semblance of order when the world is unraveling. Sarah's resilience and determination symbolize hope, adaptability, and the strength of the human spirit to endure against all odds. Even secondary characters reflect various responses to crisis: selfishness, sacrifice, fear, courage, offering a wide emotional and moral spectrum that enriches the film's metaphorical texture. Sound design and silence also function as symbolic tools throughout Greenland. The contrast between deafening destruction and moments of profound quietness draws attention to the characters' isolation and vulnerability. These quiet moments are not merely pauses in the action but spaces that allow the weight of the situation to settle in. The interplay of sound and silence mirrors the unpredictability of disaster. Just as calm can suddenly erupt into chaos, so too can moments of silence reveal deep emotional truths. This dynamic use of sound enhances the film's metaphorical landscape, emphasizing that survival is not just about physical escape but also emotional endurance. All these symbolic and metaphorical elements interlock to elevate Greenland beyond the typical disaster movie formula. They enrich the narrative by adding layers of meaning that reward attentive viewers. The film cleverly invites the audience to think about survival not simply as a matter of escaping physical danger, but as a complex emotional and societal challenge. These metaphors deepen our understanding of the characters' journeys and encourage reflection on broader themes like mortality, human connection, and social justice. So while Greenland grips you with its tense plot and thrilling action sequences, it's also quietly working on another level, engaging your mind with its rich symbolic imagery and thoughtful metaphors. These layers linger long after the immediate tension fades, offering a more profound cinematic experience that resonates emotionally and intellectually. This blend of thrilling survival story and meaningful metaphorical storytelling makes Greenland a standout film that is as rewarding to analyze as it is to watch. When we dive deeper into Greenland and consider its place within a broader franchise or historical context, things get even more interesting. Even though it technically isn't part of any existing franchise or based on a historical event, it still connects to a larger conversation about disaster storytelling and our cultural moment. This film stakes its claim as a standalone disaster thriller, which is actually a pretty refreshing move in today's cinema landscape where franchises and extended universes often dominate. Instead of setting up multiple sequels or spin-offs, Greenland focuses all its energy on telling one intense, tightly wound story about a family fighting for survival as the world faces annihilation. This independence gives it a sense of urgency and immediacy that some sprawling franchises lose when they stretch a story across multiple films. There's no room for distraction here. The stakes feel personal and high, and the narrative moves with a clear, sharp focus. If we zoom out and look at Greenland in the context of the disaster genre's long history, it's easy to spot its lineage. This film carries the DNA of classic disaster movies like Armageddon, Deep Impact, and The Day After Tomorrow, all of which tackled cosmic or environmental threats to Earth. However, Greenland cleverly avoids falling into some of those older disaster flicks traps of over-the-top spectacle and a sprawling cast of characters. Instead, it zooms in on a small family's story, making the disaster feel intimate and relatable. This evolution mirrors a broader trend in disaster films that's emerged over the last decade or so. A move from bombastic CGI-driven blockbusters to more human-centered dramas that emphasize emotional realism and character development. So, in a way, Greenland is both a tribute to and a reinvention of the disaster film formula. It offers the thrills audiences expect but wraps them in a more grounded, personal story that reflects today's cinematic tastes. Historically, while Greenland is a work of fiction, it taps deeply into the collective anxieties of our time. The fear of global catastrophe, whether it's climate change, pandemics or natural disasters, is very much in the public consciousness, and the film channels these real-world worries into its narrative. Though it doesn't recreate a specific historical event, its depiction of evacuation protocols, emergency management, and the scramble to save loved ones rings true to how real societies might respond to a large-scale disaster. These elements lend the film a layer of realism and urgency, making it feel like a cautionary tale that resonates with contemporary audiences concerned about environmental instability and the fragility of modern civilization. Moreover, the film's portrayal of government response and social dynamics under extreme stress provides an implicit commentary on how prepared, or unprepared, we are as a society to handle global crises. From the scenes of controlled chaos at evacuation points to the emotional strain on families torn apart, Greenland captures a slice of what disaster management might look like in the real world. These realistic touches immerse the viewer in a plausible scenario, blending fiction with echoes of reality, which adds to the film's gripping tension. When we compare Greenland to other recent disaster films, it stands out for its balance between spectacle and emotional depth. It refuses to become just a CGI-heavy thrill ride. Instead, it uses the disaster backdrop as a stage for exploring themes of survival, sacrifice, and human connection. This approach aligns it with a newer wave of disaster storytelling that prioritizes character-driven narratives over sheer visual effects, marking an important shift in the genre's historical trajectory. So, although Greenland is not a franchise film and not based on historical events, it contributes meaningfully to the evolution of disaster cinema by blending genre traditions with a fresh, grounded perspective. It respects the past but also speaks to present-day fears and hopes, making it a film that feels both timely and timeless. It's a snapshot of where disaster movies have come from and where they might be headed. A thrilling, emotional ride rooted in realism, human drama, and the ever-present question of how we face the end of the world. Let's take a deeper dive into Greenland's budget and box office story, because it's a perfect example of how a well-crafted mid-range film can make a strong impression without the sky-high spending that usually defines disaster movies. The reported production budget was around $35 million, which might sound like a lot, but when you stack it up against other disaster flicks, it's pretty modest. For instance, big-name disaster films often have budgets well north of $100 million, sometimes even close to $200 million, especially when they lean heavily on CGI spectacles and star-studded casts. So, Greenland was working with less than half, or even a third, of what you might expect for a movie about a planet-killing comet. What's remarkable here is how the filmmakers managed to make the most of that budget. The production team clearly knew where to focus their resources. Rather than pouring everything into jaw-dropping CGI or sprawling action sequences, they leaned into practical effects and tighter, character-focused storytelling. This strategy paid off by creating a sense of realism and immediacy. The destruction feels tangible, and the emotional stakes feel authentic. The film doesn't overwhelm you with non-stop explosions. Instead, it balances quieter, tense moments with bursts of chaos, making the action scenes hit harder without needing blockbuster-level spending. The balance between practical and digital effects was smartly handled, giving Greenland a grounded look that feels less like a typical summer spectacle and more like a gritty survival story. On the box office front, Greenland had a bit of a tough time, but not entirely due to the film itself. It hit theaters in the summer of 2020, right when the world was grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic. Cinemas were either closed or operating at reduced capacity, and audiences were hesitant to return to theaters. So the timing couldn't have been worse for a theatrical release, and many films from that period faced similar struggles. Despite this, Greenland managed to pull in around $52 million worldwide, which, given the circumstances, is pretty respectable. While that number doesn't scream blockbuster, it shows that there was definitely an audience hungry for a grounded, thrilling disaster film during a time when new releases were scarce. The film's marketing played an important role in how it performed. Instead of selling itself as a CGI-heavy spectacle, the trailers and promotional material focused heavily on the family drama and survival elements. This helped Greenland carve out a unique spot in the disaster movie landscape. It wasn't just about the destruction but about how ordinary people cope when the world's ending. This approach appealed to viewers who might have been tired of traditional disaster flicks and wanted something a bit more emotional and realistic. The marketing was clever enough to emphasize this, and while it wasn't a massive, flashy campaign like you'd see for a Marvel or Star Wars film, it fit perfectly with the movie's tone and helped draw in the right crowd. Another factor that impacted the film's earnings was its reception. Word of mouth and decent critical reviews meant that even without the usual blockbuster hype, Greenland found an audience willing to seek it out, whether in theaters where possible or later on streaming platforms. This positive buzz was crucial for a mid-budget film competing for attention in a market saturated with content. When you put it all together, Greenland demonstrates how a disaster movie doesn't need a giant budget to be effective or successful. especially if it focuses on storytelling and smart production choices. Its box office numbers reflect the unique challenges of the 2020 film landscape, but also show that there's still room for well-made, emotionally resonant films outside of the mega-budget tentpole model. The film's financial journey is a fascinating look at how quality and timing, combined with targeted marketing and audience engagement, all play vital roles in a movie's success, especially during unpredictable times in the industry. Alright, let's really dive into where and how you can watch Greenland to get the best possible experience, because the way you watch a movie like this can totally change how it hits you. Starting with the classic route. Theaters. If you're one of those who love the big screen experience, then catching Greenland in a cinema is absolutely worth it, if the opportunity arises. The film's suspenseful moments, the explosions, and the sheer scale of the disaster sequences feel way more intense when you're surrounded by a dark room, giant screen, and immersive sound system. The sound design, with its booming score and sudden silences, is crafted to make you jump in your seat and hold your breath along with the characters. Plus, the visuals, whether it's the comet hurtling toward Earth or the chaotic evacuation scenes, look spectacular on a big screen. That immersive experience is something that streaming or watching on a small TV just can't fully replicate. The tension, the emotional stakes, and the pacing all come alive in a theater in a way that really pulls you into the story. Now, if you're more of a homebuddy or streaming enthusiast, Greenland is widely available across a range of popular digital platforms. You can rent or purchase the film on Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube Movies, and other similar services. This means you can watch it on your own schedule, rewind to catch details you missed, or pause to mull over an intense scene. Watching at home has its own perks. You can settle in with your favorite snacks, get comfortable on the couch, and watch without interruptions. Plus, since Greenland has a lot of subtle emotional beats between the action, being in a relaxed environment lets you focus on the family dynamics and character moments that really drive the story. Streaming platforms also make it easy to watch with friends or family, so you can share reactions live or afterward, making it a social experience even from afar. Speaking of home viewing, the quality of your setup can really elevate how you experience Greenland. If you have a large high-definition TV or projector setup paired with a good sound system or headphones, you're in for a treat. The film's cinematography, visual effects, and sound design all benefit from crisp visuals and immersive audio. Hearing the ominous rumble of the comet or the frantic dialogue during evacuation scenes in high-quality sound really brings the film's tension home. Even if you don't have a fancy setup, a good pair of headphones and a decent-sized screen will still help you catch the nuances of the film's atmosphere and storytelling. The way the soundtrack builds suspense and then drops to silence is designed to play with your emotions, and a quality sound environment lets you feel that roller coaster. If you prefer subscription-based streaming services, it's worth checking platforms like HBO Max, Hulu, or Netflix periodically, since availability shifts over time. Sometimes Greenland pops up as part of their library, which is a bonus if you're already subscribed. Don't forget about on-demand options with cable or satellite providers. Many of them have Greenland ready to stream or rent, so you can avoid additional platforms if you prefer sticking to what you have. Regionally, availability might differ, so it's always a good idea to check your local streaming services or digital stores. Some countries might have exclusive deals, or the film could be part of a regional catalog, so a quick search can save you time. Also, keep an eye out for any special screenings or limited theatrical runs that sometimes happen with popular films even years after release. No matter which viewing method you choose, Greenland has that gripping story and emotional depth that translates well both in theaters and at home. It's a movie that benefits from immersive environments but also invites repeated viewings to catch the subtleties in performances and storytelling. Whether you're watching with a group cheering on the character's survival or quietly reflecting on the family's struggles on your own, the film's tension and heart are accessible anytime. So, pick your favorite setup, settle in, and prepare for a thrilling emotional journey that's ready to engage you wherever you are.